So, welcome to today's WildFly community call. Slight change of lineup in the sense that we don't have Jeff here with us today, but I've decided in one way or another I'll help out. So here we go, and we've got quite a big topic in the agenda, so that's great. But we can lead off with our usual community announcements, and I can see we've got one here about the WildFly 39 beta release. So I'm not sure who added this in here, but if they're here, would they like to give us an update? Maybe they're not here. Maybe Brian can let us know then.
So 39 beta, it's meant to be out today, but it's not. We're basically having some issues with deploying to Nexus. So we're trying to work through those, and they're quite problematic. So we're not quite sure when they will be done. There's lots of discussion going on. So unfortunately, we've got all the code ready, but getting it onto the internet is proving to be a struggle.
Well, it's good that we've got the code ready, and once we get to this, then hopefully our users will be able to, give us some feedback on the beta, and I guess that's something to look forward to coming up at some point soon. So, in terms of, thank you, Brian, for giving us that update. So in terms of the rest of the agenda then, we basically want to advertise that there won't be a call on January the 1st, and the next call is going to be on January the 8th. I think that would, I'm not sure if that picks up back where we were on the frequency, because I know we overshot, we moved it back by 1 week at some point, so either we're on a new frequency or not. But anyway, January the 8th is when you can expect to be joining us back here if you're available. So hopefully people will be able to join us then. So in terms of the interesting discussions then, I had a look through WildFly Google group and the Zulit WildFly, well, I was going to say WildFly dev, but many of you may know already that the archive is not the most stable thing to try to review at the moment. So I didn't look at WildFly dev, but I did look at the WildFly Google group, and I looked at Zulit. Someone else has added the next point in after the JDK 25 one, which I just would highlight here as an interesting one, because we now have another component that we should be able to integrate into WildFly that's JDK 25 targeted. So that was great to see, and that's the Hibernate component. So really grateful for that team for making progress there, and hopefully, I guess in the new year now, we'll hopefully see that one integrated. I think the release is maybe this weekend for Hibernate, so I expect to be the new year probably when we manage to get that into WildFly. But that was great to see. We have a next topic on here, like subtopic about the GraalVM prototyping. I know something about this, but I didn't add this one in, so I'm just quickly going to have a little look and see what the thread said.
Yeah, it's the work Jean Francois has been doing, and we kind of announced it a couple of weeks ago, and it continues to evolve. It's a very technical thread, so you kind of got to dig into it, but it's definitely, if people are interested in very interesting technical stuff, he's making progress. Sounds like he's making progress. So.
Yeah, awesome. It's just opened up for me now, but what I would, as we're talking about it, I would mention then a link to that I can add in here to where Jean-Francois is doing some work upstream. And if you're interested to see what's going on in WildFly and GraalVM, please do take a look at that README. I can't guarantee the branch won't change, because I think it changes enough, but this is I think probably the current one. I'm trying to follow along with Jean-Francois a bit, but that'll be tomorrow. So yeah, it was really impressive what's already been accomplished there. And yeah, please take a look if you're able to. It's a really fascinating topic. So hope you're able to have a look. It's really interesting what's going on. So now we're arriving at the main part of our agenda then, where we've got Harold, and he's going to showcase his demo of a new management console. So Harold, if you're ready, then would you like to take it away?
Yeah, thanks, Tom. All right, so let me share my screen. Yep, this one. All right, can you see my screen?
Yeah, it's coming through. Yeah, it's like your desktop. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I'm switching windows, so I'm sharing the whole desktop. All right. So let's go into it. Prepared a couple of slides, but most of the time I would like to show the current status. Yeah, for those who don't know me, my name is Harald Pehl. I work as a software engineer here at IBM. Joined in 2012, and most of the time I work on the management capabilities. And as such, I'm the component lead of the management console, also known as HAL. So I quickly want to talk about the motivation and the architecture, show some highlights, and then as I said, I would like to give a quick demo of the current status and let you know how to get involved. And if you have time, I'm happy to answer any questions. All right. So the current management console, the code base of it, that's pretty old. I looked in the GitHub history, and the first commit is something like back in 2015. So that means almost 10 years old, and that means also that some of the dependencies are pretty soon end of life, so there won't be any support or bug fixes anymore, and that's true mainly for jQuery and Bootstrap, which are dependencies of the current code base and the current console. Also, the UI library we're using, which is called WildFly, is on version 3, and the current version is already version 6. So there's a huge gap between that. Version 6 brings lots of new features, components, enhancement in the usability, and so on. And finally, what's also missing is the support for the cloud. So right now we only have one console, and that is the console which ships with every WildFly instance, and that's used for on-premise. But it would be nice to have something also available on OpenShift to manage or monitor WildFly instances running on OpenShift. That's the basic idea behind it. And if we spin up something new, would be great to have a common foundation, and then on top of that build the console we use right now for on-premise, but also have something which can hook into the OpenShift console and then use there to manage WildFly instances running there. Yeah, some more details about the architecture of the new console, which is currently in development. This is still using Java as the main language, Java 17 in here. It uses something called Java to Closure, or which is pronounced Jekyll. That's more or less the same as GWT, the Google Web Toolkit. It transpiles Java code to JavaScript, which is then executed in the browser. Jekyll has been chosen here because GWT is not so heavily supported anymore. There has been moved to the community, and there's still support for it. But for instance, the dependencies we use are using Jekyll, and this brings us to the next dependency we're using. That's a CDI implementation, which is available in this space. So that means you can have the Jakarta CDI spec almost fully implemented and use that to manage your dependencies in the code. And this is also transpiled then to JavaScript and can be run in the browser. So this is a library, Knife, which we're using here, and then we have another couple of libraries to make use of the WildFly components, layouts, charts, and so on, and something called Elemento, which makes it easier, almost straightforward to work with the DOM tree and all the JavaScript APIs in the browser, but from Java, from the Java side. And for the bundling and packaging, we use Maven to build everything together, since this is a Java project, and then for the JavaScript side, Parcel and NPM. This diagram shows the basic architecture from a bird's eye view. So at the very bottom, we have this transpiler, which cares about bringing everything into JavaScript to make it available on the browser. And then on top of that, we have the WildFly Java library and the Elemento library. And then the yellow part is actually what we're right now building as a new console, although this is the foundation. So there are different modules dealing with different aspects of the console. One important is, of course, the UI part, to build all the UI elements. We have support for theming, so the console for WildFly does look a little bit different than the console for ERP, for instance, for the commercial product. Then an important part is the meta module, which deals with the resource descriptions from the management model. So this is a very crucial part for the console, since almost everything depends on this information in the read resource description. So the name of the attributes, the descriptions, the dependencies between them, whether it's required, readable, writable, the operations which are available for specific resources, the capabilities they expose, and so on. So this is all contained in the resource description, which is usually quite big payload associated with it. So we try to cache the information once we read it in the browser, and in the memory or in the local storage of the browser. And then there are a couple of other modules like Flow, which deals about asynchronous operations and to execute them in parallel or in sequence, which is important in the browser, since there's usually everything is kind of asynchronous. So you have this concept of promises. If you fetch a resource from the server or something else, this usually happens in an asynchronous manner. And beside the purple part is this CDI implementation we are using to glue everything together, to inject our beans into one another, to listen to events and so on. And then on top of that are the two applications where only the one exists at the moment or is in development. So HAL on-premise is the successor, or should be the successor of the current management console. On the other side, we have the HAL OpenShift, which is right now an idea, but which is planned to use the same foundation as HAL OP. All right, and before we go into the demo, I quickly want to highlight some features of the new console. So the first one is the dashboard, which should replace the current homepage of the management console, which is kind of static. So there's just static information, some text, some guides, not many interactive elements. And the dashboard is meant to show the basic information or basic data from the WildFly instance, like the name, the version, a quick look whether there are errors or warnings in the log file, the memory and the threading, the health status if available, the deployments, and so on. And this is how it looks right now. So we have most of the most important information at one place. We will see that in action when we go into the demo. But before, I quickly want to talk about something else I have in mind, or we have in mind. This is kind of an idea to have some tasks in the console available, which kind of correspond to the high-level commands you have in the CLI. So, for instance, you can have something. You could have tasks to configure SSL for the HTTP listener, or to quickly change the log settings to enable logging, to enable statistics for various subsystems and resources. Maybe to configure reverse proxies. So kind of a high-level tasks, which typically involve configuring and tweaking multiple resources or subsystems. And so in there, we could make use of the UI to guide the user to a kind of wizard to give reasonable defaults to help with more complex tasks. So right now, this is just an idea. And the idea is to have the task be described in kind of a JSON structure, which is the case right now. But what is missing right now is the actual implementation. So there's not much behind it, just an idea. But the idea would be to make it extensible in a way that we can contribute tasks to the console, which then would be either consumed at build time or maybe even at runtime. So that's the rough idea behind it. And then finally, we have the model browser, which is already available in the current console as well, but which has been greatly enhanced. The model browser gives you a way to look at the complete management model of the WildFly instance you're connected to. So you have a preview and go to each and every resource, take a look at the attributes, make modifications, execute operations. And the UI has been greatly enhanced. Now you can also search for resources. You can go to specific resources very quickly if you know the address. Make use of the capabilities. Have a better support for expressions and so on. So we will see that in action if we go to the demo as well. So here's just a screenshot how the current management model browser looks like. And with that, I would suggest to go to the demo. So in order to use something or to see something, we of course need some WildFly instances or some WildFly instance running. To spin up something, I'm using a tool called Rado, which is kind of a tool to start multiple WildFly versions in containers, which have reasonable defaults for ports and so on, so that those don't conflict with each other. And I'm using that for the demo here, because I want to switch between different versions of WildFlies or between standalone and domain mode. And for that, I'm using this Rado tool. So we are starting a very old version of WildFly, then some new versions like Service 37, 38, and then each one will use different configurations. And 38, for instance, will use stability level preview. And then we also want to use domain mode, start one instance in domain mode, and also start some host controllers which connect to the domain controller and have 3 servers attached to it. And with that, I think we should be ready to go. So we have a couple of WildFly instances up and running now. And that means I can run the console. So I'm using a native binary here. This native binary is a Quarkus application compiled to native, and this Quarkus application just spins up a local web server, which serves the static resources of the console, essentially the JavaScript, HTML, and CSS resources. All right. With that, we can open the console. So first screen you see is a dialog to connect to a running WildFly instance. Then since this console runs on its own, it doesn't ship with a WildFly instance. You have to configure a so-called endpoint here. And there's a little bit of description here how to do so, because the WildFly instance itself need to configure or need to open its management endpoint and make it available for the console. That is for course reason. But luckily, the instances started by Vado comes in with a pre-default configuration, so we don't have to execute these management operations, and just can go ahead and maybe start with the newest one. Let's call that WildFly. So this is just a name, so that you can remember the connection. The most important setting is here, the port, and the containers started with Vado have kind of a default mechanism to publish its port, and that is we are using the major and the minor version here. So version 38 goes with port 9380. We can see if that's running. So they also come with reasonable defaults for a management user name and password, and this is available. So we can add the connection and then choose that and connect to the WildFly instance. And so here we see the dashboard. First thing you'll notice is that we have a banner here at the top, since this is running in stability mode preview. We give it a little bit of warning, or so that the user knows. The overview card gives the most important information like name, version, the configuration file we are using. So this one uses the microprofile configuration file, the uptime. Then we have the most important states here, like server state, suspend state, and so on. The log file, we just summarize the number of warnings and errors here. So looking at the log file itself is not yet implemented, but we will see a workaround later on. Then host and JVM information, the memory consumption, and the threading information. So the number of daemon threads, the overall number of threads, and this little orange line here, it's hard to catch. This is the peak count so far. So this is information read from the mbeans resource in the WildFly. And then since we are using microprofile here, we also have the health information, the status of the different end checks here, which we can use as well on the overview. So if we switch to another one, let's say we add one for the 37. Let's use this one and connect to that one. So again, we need to authenticate. So this one, for instance, uses the full HA profile. And there's no microprofile health, though the dashboard looks a little bit different. Deployments aren't available here. And then we have some links. For instance, this links to the new catalog we recently published. So it doesn't work at the moment. I guess this is not available for 37, so this should be available for 38 and onwards. Yeah, so you can use these links here to get more information. And then finally, let's look at the one running in domain mode. So this was 36. And let's connect to this one. So here we see the domain node, the configuration files. We have lists the two files for the domain controller, and then deployments are not yet supported in the current version of the console, though this isn't available here. But more or less, it's a similar dashboard to the other ones. So let's switch back to 38, the standalone version. And then we can go through most of the other tabs, they aren't developed yet. So deployments, configuration, and runtime, they are under heavy development, so but it's not ready yet. But the idea is to have something similar as in the current console. So the task is kind of a concept and then a rough idea we have. So the data you see right now comes out of some kind of meta description or metadata. And but there's no real implementation behind it right now. But shouldn't be too hard to implement some of these, like enabling statistics. Could go through the management model, look for resources which have the enable statistics attribute, lists them in an overview, and then the user can choose to turn off and on the different statistics, for instance. So this would be easier to go to each and every resource and click this flip the flag. All right. So and with that, let's go to the last thing which is implemented right now, and this is the model browser. So here we can see at the left-hand side, we have the tree of all the resources. We have various buttons here on the tree. For instance, if you want to go to a resource, let's say, let's choose this one. If you have the resource at hand or in the clipboard, for instance, you can paste it here and then jump directly to the resource. For instance, here the default to system. Then you can either filter the attributes, which are pretty much attributes here by type, for instance, if you want to see just booleans and strings or numerics. You can do so, and you can filter by status, for instance, only see the ones which are not deprecated, where expressions are allowed, and then only the configurations ones. And this will trim down the available attributes. Then you can, this filter is also applied if you switch to the edit mode to make some modifications here. Whenever possible, we give additional informations like the unit, the little icons here. You see that this field supports expressions, which switches to another input field. For instance, if you go to this one, you can just enter numbers, but no characters, because this is a numeric field. If you switch to the expression mode, you can then enter the expression you want to use, for instance. And you also have then this result expression, which is not yet implemented yet, but which will then resolve the expression you entered. Okay. Yeah, well, this is, then we have the metadata also available for the resource. So here you can see the different attributes in a detailed view and read the descriptions, which is, by the way, also available here as part of this view. So whenever you see this dashed line, this means that you can get the description right hand at the attribute. Operations are also available. By default, the global operations are dismissed here, so that you see only the operations which are relevant for the specific resource. But you can switch, and then you will have the default operations as well, like map, clear, read resource, list add, and so on. So if there are any capabilities, you see also the capabilities of the resource which they provide. Yeah, and speaking of operations, I can show another feature. For instance, let's take a look at the log file. So if you don't know exactly where the log file is located, you have the ability to search the management model tree for something containing log in the resource address. So you have different means to search. For instance, you can search only the address part, the type part, or the complete name. And then, okay, I won't find anything because it takes the current selected resource as root, which we don't want here. We want to search from the very beginning of the management model. And this will give us the log file here. And then we can jump right away to this one. And at the operations tab, we see there's a read log file operation. And we can use that. And say we want to have the 50 last lines of the log file, and this will execute the operation, and the output will be available here. So this is kind of hard to read because it's the DMR way of the result, but you can see at least, take a quick look, quickly scan for any errors or warnings. Of course, this will be available in a much more easier to consume way once we implement the console fully. All right. Yeah, so this, let's go to the very root again. What else? What I can show as well is if you want to add something, for instance, adding something in the logging something, or adding a new handler, for instance, is also already supported. So you will see the required attributes you have to provide for the operation. Choose between what you want to actually do. You also see the required attributes. You have the resource descriptions or the attribute descriptions if necessary. And then entering some data should create the new resource. All right. I think that's most of the things I want to show. Let's quickly go back to the presentation. Yeah, if you want to get involved with the development of the new console, you're happy to contribute or take a look at the code. So everything is on GitHub. There's a contribution guide available. There are different issues to discuss. The basic concepts like the dashboard, the tasks. So I'm happy to get feedback on this one. Yeah, as mentioned, we have the Google group. There's this dedicated channel on Zulip for the management console. So if you have any feedback, please let me know. I also listed some additional resources here on the slide if you're interested in the dependencies we are using or the command I'm using to spin up the WildFly instances. You will find the additional information here. All right. Well, thank you. And if there are any questions or anything you want to know, happy to answer questions right now. Okay. Yeah, Brian.
First, looks great. I like the look. It's nice, very nice. I think I know the answer to this. I'm going to ask anyways. So the way you demoed this, you started up a separate console process, then you did all the connect and all that stuff, which You can do that now with HAL if you operate that way. But I think the intent, though, still is like a typical somebody running an app server goes to the management port, downloads the JavaScript, and then they get one that's connected to what they just
Yeah,
that's still
right.
going to be the intent. Yeah. So
Yeah, that will remain the same. So the basic idea is to that WildFly ships with the console itself, and then just starting WildFly, open up 9997 0, and then you'll have the console right away. Yeah.
do you have any like timeline? I realize this is a bad question to ask somebody, particularly right before the year end, going away, relaxing. But
Yeah. So it took me a lot of time because there was a recent major upgrade of the Patternfly library. They moved from 5 to 7 to 6, which I'm using right now. This took a lot of time to rewrite or to adjust all the components I have in the console. Now I'm in a pretty good state, such as I have most of the components at hand. I have the basic charting at hand. So right now I can concentrate on the actual implementation. Like what's missing is the big part is the deployments, the configuration, and runtime parts. So this is something I want to tackle next, but this will heavily be based on the work which is already available in the management model. All the forms, the showing of the attributes and such is already available. So hopefully I will have follow-up versions kind of each and every month or so, or every 2 months to have something new. My plan is to have as soon as possible kind of a feature pack in a previous state or experimental level, which I can give users to provision their WildFly instance, and then we would have something like a /console2 or something like that, so that they can play around with a new console.
great. I'll keep talking unless somebody else jumps in. The only other, this is kind of a yeah. Go ahead, Tom.
Patternfly 6. I was just reading about it. It seems to have some AI chatbot thing in it. Have you come across that, Harold? And does it factor in here somewhere?
Yeah. That's very interesting stuff they have on in their library. So I read about this AI chatbot, and this is also something which is super interesting for the console. Because this, I could imagine to have that integrated in the new console, and then make use of anything AI related in the server. Like we already saw examples. Jean-François did some experiments with asking about the health status of the instance. Like, are there any issues in the log files or something like that? And of course, that would be great to have it in the console as well. So yeah, this is definitely on the table.
What kind of integration is it then? So it's not provided by is it like something you have to plug in that you provide yourself, like the HAL would provide the integration? It's not provided by Patternfly, or just
yes, right. So
yeah.
Patternfly would only give the UI stuff.
Okay.
Only the UI stuff to build such a chatbot, but the actual logic behind it or the implementation itself, that depends on us. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, so it's just like a consistent way to represent the chatbot, but it doesn't. Yeah. Okay, interesting. Yeah, thank you.
So the other thing I was going to just mention, this is kind of a tangent, but not a tangent, but you showed like the statistics task. And that just, when you were looking at that, it kind of struck me as, oh, we really need a metrics task as opposed to a statistics task. In other words, if you talk to Jason, I'm sure you know, it's a very complex topic, which subsystem, which way of doing metrics, so that's just
that's a good idea, though. That's something, this kind of feedback I'm looking for. have that makes sense to have it kind of prominent top level category, statistics or something like that, and then you can make use of all. I think we have lots of statistic in there in the management model. It's just the question how to show it to the user and make it available to the user. Right.
Yeah, definitely. Says, I mean, we got 3 different metric subsystems and different ways of exposing them. OTLP.
Yeah, and the hard thing for the
versus-
user is always to find the right spot or to find the right place to look at. And this is the advantage of having a console where you can have it at once.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. All right, so then thank you. I'm going to stop my screen sharing.
Okay.
All
Well,
right.
thank you, Harold. Yeah, thank you. Hopefully people found that interesting and good source of information of where they can go next if they're able to help contribute in some way with ideas or pull requests and so on. But thank you for showing it to us, Harold. And yeah, so okay. In the parking lot, we've got 39 beta related release tasks. I don't know if that might be something.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, I mean, this call is like a routine developer call too. So, we do cool presentations, but it's also a place where the people working on WildFly can get and meet. And the people working on WildFly right now are trying to solve a very hard problem of getting the police out the door. So this is an opportunity we can, instead of doing things via Zoom, we could actually talk to each other face to face. So I guess the question is, what do we want to do? We're kind of in a mode now where we're.
I have a different question. What can we do? I think at the moment, if we had an option, we would be taking it, but we are blocked in all directions. And I've literally got 2 hours left before I'm finishing for the year.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as far as I know, what you've got is you've got main, the head of main, and then you've applied the updates, right? So in terms of like somebody picking up for you, as long as we take main and change the version numbers, we're okay, right?
Yeah, literally, someone could go back to, I can't remember the indexing in the release process, but someone could go back to the step where you check out main, verify that it builds, set the versions, and then start the release process.
Okay.
I haven't done anything with Jira issues yet or release notes because I normally do those once I'm confident that I've got a release.
Yeah.
Which that's the time I go back and start aggregating things and.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I guess what can we do? Because if Nexus isn't going to allow it to go up, then we're kind of stuck. All right.
I did try to resume from the WildFly EE dist again this morning to see if maybe having a quiet night had kind of given it a chance to be more receptive. But no, it's still the same failure this morning, I think.
Is it still the gateway timeout, or?
Yeah, still the gateway timeout.
I have never been able to release to Nexus without this gateway timeout. I always get it for every artifact.
I must have restarted this release process with resume from over 10 times by now. But most of those components up to that point, the subsequent attempts did work. But this WildFly EE dist is just too large.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it sounds like I don't think there's much probability that sending to Nexus is going to work in the next day or two. I mean, it hasn't so far, and I don't, from the discussions we've had, I don't have any reason to believe that's going to change, right?
Yeah, I just don't know, because we're suspecting that there's resource constraints, but it was working before. We have released. When did we do our first WildFly release? Was it a 37 release?
I think 30. The one we did, and I guess it was August. I did. It worked.
Yeah, so we've done
30. Yeah. 37 worked.
Yeah, so we have done a complete. We have already had multiple releases go through with this Nexus setup, but there's something
Something has changed. Yeah. Yeah. So we can try. We can continue to try and see if they can figure out what's changed. I guess the alternative is to try to moving to central, and then okay. So the problem with central is the generated bombs won't work. Yes, you're right.
Yeah, I have not followed the latest status on there, but I wonder if there is a possibility to deploy directly to releases and avoid stacking two releases a step. Maybe we can just deploy directly to releases, and hopefully Nexus can synchronize with Maven Center in the future in the following days. But I don't know. Really, I don't know the current status. So I'm just wondering if that could be a possibility.
I think the reservation I'd have with that is I think if you deploy direct to central, it's an all or nothing deployment process. That if you can't upload your bundle at the end, the whole thing fails. If your bundle's not validated, it won't deploy a single artifact. My impression of when we're using the plugin that we deploy to Nexus direct to releases, we would start to have artifacts incrementally appearing in Nexus. So if we get halfway through the build and then we get a failure, we're gonna have a half-released product in Nexus that would sync to central. And because of the way,
Can you disable the sync task in the meantime?
but that doesn't really help because our releases repo, we're not supposed to, that's also supposed to be immutable, and we're not supposed to be deleting things from releases.
If I'm not mistaken, you can do it. You can delete from releases.
Yeah, but we're not supposed to be because we've got loads of consumers of releases. So you've potentially got the ecosystem starts to pull our half-released app server, and then we re-release it afterwards. And the other problem I've got with some of our builds is I think because of the way we do things with feature packs, it's not always a case that you're guaranteed that you can start at an intermediate point in the build, because I think sometimes you can end up with a build failure that you've actually got to go back a few steps.
So what you cannot definitely do is overwrite things in releases. So if you get like half of that module published and the other half not, it just becomes very finicky to clean that portion up and continue from that point.
Yeah, well,
sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
No,
I just want to point out we're not able to actually push to anywhere at this point. So it's that we're not blocked on moving from staging to releases. We're blocked on getting content up to Nexus in general.
Okay.
But I mean, clearly, we expect the move would be the next hurdle. So the conversation isn't the wrong conversation to have. It's just that's by itself isn't a solution.
Yeah, from what we've seen, we're assuming that even if we do manage to get this in, it could be a long duration to get the move to happen.
Yeah, it might take days.
So what are the chances of actually fixing this bomb builder? I think Eduardo posted a link to the sources. It sounds like adding a hash there is maybe not so problematic. Would that help with publishing to Central?
Not sure, honestly. What I'm seeing is that maybe it's not supposed to attach a project other than another artifact with a classifier or type. At least this code that we are using is deprecated, and the new one, the current one, that's the only thing it allows. So maybe related to that, I'm starting to play around it, and we'll see what I can figure out. But I honestly, I don't think that adding the files just to the folder will do any good. We can try to see if we can try to generate some files there.
Yeah, I guess the I guess the question is whether the plugin, when it creates the bundle zip, whether it would pick those files up or whether it would just have no idea that they exist. Yeah.
Does it actually, is there a validation that nothing else is, I suppose maybe there should be, that nothing's tampered with that bundle zip? But there's no way that we could insert something in the life cycle to retrospectively shove things in the zip.
I mean, the whole thing happens within one plugin execution. So you'd have to be inserting yourself into the middle of a plugin execution, which.
Okay, so we haven't got opportunities to.
I mean, if you could stick a file in there ahead of time, then yeah. But you can't insert yourself in the middle.
Honestly, in my opinion, what we should figure out a way to make it work now.
Mm-hmm.
And then change the bomb builder.
Yeah.
The workaround will not be a good solution.
I mean, what we can do is basically drop the bombs from the build and then figure out how to deploy the bombs. I mean, that's basically break the thing into two parts and figure out how to. Obviously, we shouldn't release one until we figure out the second part, but that might be a way to solve the problem.
Yeah, that's something I was wondering in chat if there's any way that we could split it into some kind of, if it needs to be done separately as a separate profile. So as part of the release process, it becomes just two commands instead of one command.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely doable. I mean, we just tell Maven not to run those modules, and then we figure out how to run them later. But for that to be useful, we do have to figure out then how we're going to get the things deployed. But maybe there's some other. Like I know the Central allows you to create your own zip and upload it. So in the end, I think if we can do something like that, at least today, not forever, but for a one-off.
Yeah, I couldn't find material like that. But yeah, it's almost like, could we just abandon all plugin? I'm almost at the point that would it for us to write our own plugin that calls the sonotype endpoint, and we have full control of what we send.
I believe so, because if you look at the docs for the plugin, they're just in a section where this is using this plugin is one way to deploy stuff, but in the end, the architecture is you have these bundle zips and you get them up there somehow. If you're not using Maven, then it's not using a Maven plugin to do it. If you're using some other, Nexus supports all sorts of artifact types. So. We don't have to keep talking on this call with all the once we run out of ideas. I guess we don't have to keep doing it on the call, but at least kind of. So maybe that's the next thing to do is to try to figure out how to do that. Does that seem like a good approach as we move away from this call? Is to try to figure out how to separate the things and independently deploy the bombs?
So is the zip somewhere available? After you run the whole build, do you get the zip file? Is it somewhere? So
yeah, it's in the root.
Use the plugin to build a zip file and just fix the couple of files. Just add the signatures to a couple of the files and then upload manually.
That's what we have to figure out. Is if we look at unfortunately, the plugin docs aren't awesome. So in terms of, there you go, an example to upload a bundle. There you go. So that's the answer.
You can upload the bundle probably from the UI as well. So maybe you don't even have to do this, right?
So maybe we are talking just some post. If we can extract this bundle, if we can, I don't know when it deletes it. If we can make sure that we could grab that bundle, maybe it is something to manually add the missing files in. Are we just missing hashes? Are we missing GPG sign signatures as well?
Just hashes.
Just the two hashes.
Well, there's 3 or 4 per, so it's 8 files per bomb.
What's the minimum for those? I know, because I think on the Maven Central plugin you can configure how many it creates, but I think the minimum you have to have is MD5 and SHA1.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because I think those are the only ones that are coming up in the error message we're seeing from Central, is that those two are missing, so the others are optional.
Okay.
Obviously, having the stronger hashes is a better practice, but for the purpose of getting a beta release uploaded.
Yeah.
So that sounds hopeful.
I believe this bundle way is what we use for a MMRC. We create a zip and then we post it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the way.
And in the end, that's what the plugin is doing for you. You know, the plugin is creating a whole big file directory structure, and then it zips it up and sends it up. So, I mean, essentially that hack I did where I told it a bogus URL to send to, that allows everything to happen, and then it fails to send it up. So you end up with a zip, you end up with a directory structure, you have everything you need, and then the build fails. So you could at that point go and fix your zip and set it up. That could work.
That's probably how Nexus works. Because they are generating the hash files.
Yeah, if you watch what it does, it goes through and you can see it logging. You know, once it's got the entire directory structure, then it goes through and generates all the hash files and then creates the zip. But for whatever reason, it doesn't create the hash files for these bomb artifacts. I guess because it doesn't really understand them. Doesn't really understand what they are. So shall we maybe go off and try to do this, what we've just been talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Well,
Yes, at least we've got timing wise, I might still need to find someone to take over at this point because we've got time still to wrap up in this release. But this feels like we've almost got the pieces to make this achievable.
Out of curiosity, what is going on with Nexus?
it's infrastructure issues, which I don't really want to get into Red Hat's internal details on the call. So they just they got infrastructure problems.
If we do break the building too, just deploying the bombs with Nexus would work? Since it's small.
We are past that stage of the build. They're currently, so obviously I think we need to delete the tag I've already got in there when we abandon it. But yeah, that part of the build we were able to get into Nexus.
Yeah, Tom?
Sorry to interrupt this part of the conversation, but I have another call that I'm going to go to. And one of the things that I've been wanting to mention that I should have mentioned earlier, which is unrelated to Nexus, so maybe this will give you all a chance to break from this call as well, is just that something that I would like to say, as it's the last call of the year, is like I say, it's totally different to Nexus. Obviously, everyone here very grateful for, and hopefully have thanked people in other things, but I think it's also good to thank our community users. We've had like a lot of WildFly issues that have been raised by non-Red Hat. You know, if you do the search on Jira, you can find issues that aren't raised by people that are employed by Red Hat one way or another, or IBM now or whatever. So you got a lot of those this year. So I'm obviously grateful for like reports from our community. Those are really helpful to us. We've got pull requests that I think are not from like those group of people as well. So not only have we had issues raised, but contributions from our community. So this would have been a lot better probably to have earlier, but anyway, I apologize. And yeah, so really grateful to the contributions from our community and pull request issues, and you know, obviously on the user group and so on. So yeah, really grateful to our community for that. Unfortunately, like I say, it would have been better early because I'm already a minute over now, so I'm going to have to drop. But thank you, and thank you for your contributions to everyone who's contributed to WildFly, on if you're employed by a company that's paid to work on it or not. Really grateful. So, but yeah, thank you everyone, and see you in 2026.
Thank you, Tom. Well said.
Yeah, thanks.
Manuel? Oh, maybe hit the wrong button. Maybe I think with that, maybe we should drop off in the call and say thank you everybody, and we can continue with like we can go on Zoom. All right. So seconding what Tom said, thank you for everybody on the call, everybody who works on WildFly, everybody who uses WildFly and helps support it. It's actually been a really good year, just kind of a strange final step. So, all right. Looking forward to 2026. See you then. All right.
Bye bye. See you.